Hey folks, it's Tommy Frugal Prepper. What we got here is a 2002 Honda Accura 3.2 TL, I believe. I don't know. I don't know why they can't just give them names like Civic and Accord, but they got to make them fancier, I guess, and give them numbers. But got the scan tool plugged in. Customer complaint was the triangle sign was lighting up and the ABS light was coming on. And they backed it up once and it seemed like it didn't go into reverse, which could have meant that it got put in neutral, but it's kind of hard to do that here because you'd have to come down, around, and up, so I don't know. But it does have some transmission codes in it, but what we're concerned about here is the ABS. Has some clutch lockup transmission codes and stuff. A lot of these Hondas do, and you just ignore them and keep driving them until they don't drive anymore. But my experience on a Honda transmission code, don't worry about it. And so we're gonna go to ABS, and this is Accura, yes. And we're gonna read the codes. And right rear wheel speed sensor open or short. So I'll tell you how we figure out whether it's an open or a short here in a minute. And right rear wheel speed sensor failure. Okay, seems to be pointing to a right rear wheel speed sensor. And ECM PCM relation failure. Don't know what that's about. I don't think that's related to our current problem. And so what I'm going to look is this. So usually on Hondas, and this might only be on newer ones, I don't know if it works on one this old, but it produces a bias voltage. And so you go and you measure that DC voltage. This has a variable reluctance sensor, which means it has a tone ring and a little pickup, and it has two wires that come back to the computer, back to, I believe, the ABS computer on this one. And so if it sends a DC bias voltage down those wires, and I believe if it's shorted, the DC bias voltage will go away. If it's open, the DC bias voltage will stay. So what we're going to do is we're just going to back probe the connector first here, I think, and see if it's got a bias voltage. And then if that doesn't have a bias voltage, we'll unplug the sensor and see if it has a bias voltage. And then we'll go from there. So I've got her jacked up. I've got two back probes fed into the ABS sensor, which runs down on here. Okay, and so I've hooked that to my 30-foot retractable leads, just so I can go in the car and turn the key on and see right away what it says. Because sometimes, if it's going to kill the bias voltage, it'll put it out a little bit at first and then kill it. I think it's just on the newer ones where it shuts it down on an open and a short, but we'll see here. So let me get this hooked up and I'll be right back. Alright, so I got my meter set up for DC voltage, and I've manually set it to that second decimal place. So we're going to see when we turn the ignition on if we get any bias voltage. If I can get it. Oh, I gotta hit the brake. Okay. I don't know. Come on, ignition. Jeez. Stupid Hondas. There, okay. So now here comes the ignition. I'm getting no voltage. Let me start it up and see. I'm getting no voltage. It doesn't come on for a split second. Doesn't do anything. So what I'm going to do is open up that connector and front probe it, because those back probes might not be making good contact. I don't know about Hondas and their connectors and how well they back probe, because I don't work on Hondas that much. Alright, so I ended up just bringing the multimeter out here to hook onto it. I got 2 alligator clips and the little blade connectors there. And I got 5 volts there. So what I'm gonna do is see if I'm making contact with the back probe and plug this guy back in and see if I keep my 5 volts or it goes to 0. It's possible the sensor's shorted. These aren't a common failure though. They usually get a little rust jacking under them and they don't produce enough voltage, but that won't create an open or a short code. So we're gonna see. Alright, so I plugged back in and I did ohm those out, or did a continuity test on them to make sure when I touched the very front of the probe that it got the got continuity to the back probe. So I know the back probes are making contact, and I plugged it in and it immediately goes to 0 volts. Back here wiggling it makes no difference. I'm pretty sure we have a shorted sensor. We can't really do a measurement on the sensor because they're really low ohms. They're just a coil, and I don't know what the ohm readings are supposed to be, and I'm sure Honda probably doesn't even say, but we definitely have got ourselves a shorted coil. What I could try to do is back probe the other side of this with it unplugged and then plug it in and watch the voltage go away, and that would tell me for sure that we're dealing with a shorted coil. Okay, so I got my back probes worked in the back of this guy. I have 5 volts. Now I'm going to take and plug this in and watch what happens as soon as I make contact. Uncontact, contact, no contact, contact. So we have us a shorted sensor. Alright, so I talked to the customer. AutoZone, I don't know if I still, yeah, I have their site still up here. That's how much they wanted for the sensor, that plus tax. And this is how much it was on Amazon. So it'll be here Sunday. Today's Thursday night, and I don't mind it sitting in the driveway for right now, and he's not in a super big hurry for the car, so we just ordered one on Amazon, and we're gonna swap that thing in there. Normally, yeah, using a better quality sensor would be a good idea. In fact, an OEM one would be best, but that's a 2002 with a bazillion miles on it, so I don't have a problem putting a cheap part on it. You know, it doesn't have to last forever. So anyway, I will update you when we get that sensor back in. We'll finish this video up. All right, so the new sensor came from Amazon. It looks pretty good. We're gonna go put it in and see if she works. So I believe the sensor just bolts in down here somewhere. It's got a 10mm bolt going this way. See if you can see that. I don't know. Probably need some more light to see that, but it's got a 10mm bolt going in here. It's got one right here for this holder. It's got another one up here for this holder. So those are all 10s, so we're gonna take those out and replace it. All right, so the old one's out, and so it came out in pieces. Here was the old one that came out. You can see why it was probably shorted. But The plastic part did not come out. This stayed in the wheel hub. And so I thought I was going to have to take the rotor off and get in there and knock it through. But what I found was that there's this handy dandy hole right here. And if you stick that in there, you can feel around till you feel the plastic. And it's not metal, it's plastic. And then you just hammer that and it comes right on through and knocks that out for you. So now I got a little bit of sandpaper. I'm going to just clean up that hole a little bit and then we'll put the new one in. Alright, so the new one is in here. That cavity was pretty rusted up, right? And so I thought, well, maybe I can get to it from the front. So I pulled off the rotor, but you really can't get to it from here without pulling this hub. I didn't want to get into pulling the hub. So what I was finally able to do was to take this, maneuver it back into here and get into that hole. And then I pushed this forward until it hit the teeth and I saw where it was, and I made sure I stayed out just enough to where I wouldn't hit the teeth. And I was able to clean out the hole where this guy goes and get it to fit in there. Nice and snug, but it fit. So what I had to do was just take and put the bolt in a little and then tap this with the back of a screwdriver to get it to go down, and then tighten the bolt, tap it, and get it to sit flush. It's in there now. It is right there, and there's the teeth going by it. So it should pick it up. Got the cable routed, plugged in, so now we can see if it's gonna work. So the sandpaper just wasn't enough to take care of all the rust that was in that hole. So my guess is the rust, as rusty as it was, probably actually squashed out and damaged some of these wires, which was giving us the shorted code. So anyway, now we'll see if it still shows up as shorted on the scan tool. Alright, so now I'm going to go special menu. I'm going to go to ABS. Accura, is this your vehicle? Yes. We're going to erase the codes in the ABS. We're not going to turn the ignition off and back on. No ABS codes. So I want to see live data. See if it's got the wheel speeds in here. So left front, right rear. Okay. So now that I can see this, we're going to come down here. We're going to turn this. And we're going to see if she sees anything. Yep, she's changing as I turn the wheel. We'll turn it backwards, forwards, yep. So now she's working. Sweet. By the way, I got a gasket set, a complete gasket set, and bearings for a 3.8 liter 2006 Buick Lucerne. Project is coming. Alright, so it's starting to get dark here. I'm going to try to get this wheel back on, get this thing down off the jack stands. I got to put the caliper and the rotor back on. But that's a fix. It now no longer shows that it's shorted. It's reading it. Everything's happy. I'm happy. So we can get this thing moved on out of here. I think that was the problem, was the short in the actual wheel speed sensor itself was causing it. So I guess that's something to think of. It gets rusty, and the rust expands, and it starts squeezing it and shorts out those little wires in there. It's a 2002 or whatever. I mean, it's actually remarkably in pretty good shape. It's not all rusted out like you would expect a car of this era to be. So it just is what it is. All right, I'll talk to y'all later. It's Tom, Frugal Prepper.